If you could go back in time 2,000 years ago, the time of Jesus, and if you were to see Jesus walking by on those roads in the Holy Land, you might never recognize him. Now, first of all, Jesus probably looked very little like the pictures we have of him on holy cards or even in great art. In the holy cards and great art, he often has wavy hair, like he's been sitting in a beauty parlor all afternoon. His skin is usually pink. He looks beautiful, but often not very manly. The real Jesus was a carpenter. That meant he worked with his hands. And carpenters in those days didn't just make plows and furniture. They were really construction workers. They often helped build houses. So the Lord would have been strong and probably had calluses on his hands. And like most first century Jews, probably looked a little more Mexicano than Polish. Browner skin. Probably a good sized nose. And although he was recognized as the great preacher, people came to hear him. Although the disciples were following him, and although he worked miracles, which made the crowds wonder, even his disciples did not really know who he was. Even Peter, James, and John, they were the inner circle of disciples. The Lord gave special teaching to them. They were there at special occasions. Even they had not yet realized who Jesus was. So we took them up to Mount Tabor. All of a sudden, his face became brighter than the sun. Have you ever come out of a dark room into blazing sunshine? You can't see. It blazes. It's glorious. That's what the Lord's face suddenly became like. And his clothes were the whitest of white, whiter than the brightest snow. And Moses, the great prophet who gave Israel the law, and Elijah, the great prophet who challenged Israel to follow that law. There they were discussing the fact that Jesus was going up to Jerusalem to suffer and die and so save his people. Now Peter, kind of typical of him, opens up his mouth and starts babbling on about, I will build 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. He didn't understand what was happening. But the voice of God silenced him. God said about his Son, Jesus Christ, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." Well, Peter, James, and John fell on their faces on the ground. But then the Lord walked up to them, touched them, and they looked up, and he looked the way he had always looked. No more blazing face and white clothes. And he told them not to tell of this vision until he had risen from the dead. Actually, they had no idea what being risen from the dead would mean. Now, the reason why Jesus gave them his vision was because he was about to go to Jerusalem and suffer and die. They were about to be scandalized that he would be arrested, abused, beaten, nailed to a cross, and buried in the tomb. So they needed that vision of Jesus in glory. Remember, Jesus was like us in everything but sin. He was as human as we are, except without sin, but he never ceased being God, the eternal Word of God, the God who has no beginning or end, the God whose beauty and glory and brilliance is beyond our ability to describe it. You know, in the second Sunday of Lent, we're something like Peter, James, and John. We're on a journey to Holy Week, and we too need to remember that we serve a mighty Lord, an awesome Lord, a glorious Christ. And when this world makes fun of the scriptures and the gospel and of our holy faith, remember that Jesus is the beloved Son of the Father. He is the King of kings and Lord of lords. And just as the tomb couldn't hold him and he would rise up glorious, so too will he remake this world and present it at the end of time to his Father. But there's another reason we need in our Lenten journey to remember today's gospel. That glorious Lord lives in you. You are baptized. Some of you I will get to confirm in a week or so. You receive, most of you except for the second graders and first graders, will receive Holy Communion. So you carry Jesus within you. That Jesus that makes the earth tremble. So, when people try to tear you down, if people are mean to you, if people say you're nothing, no, you are something, you are precious, you carry God in your life. The glorious Christ is no further away than your own heart. And remember, as Lent is a time to die to sin, to give more of ourselves in love and service to our neighbor, we should have that picture of the risen Christ always before us. That glory that appeared on Mount Tabor should in some ways be reflected in your life and my life. So, on this second Sunday of our Lent, as we head up to Jerusalem to walk with Jesus, to hear him teach, to thank him for pouring out his life's blood for us and for rising from the grave, let us know it is a royal road to the cross. It is the way of glory. It is the way